Okay. Get rolling right away. Hmm. Evie, what's up? Hey, UK. Incredibly lucky first round from them. Jeez. Hey, Warrior. Hmm. Not loving our defensive options this round. Kind of gonna need our opponent to mess up. We don't even have a domino counter at the moment. Jeez. Not be good. Why, Warrior? That's kind of a personal question. What are you going for there? Thanks for stopping by, TC. Except if I place Jean, who goes on defense. Surprise. Well, that was a little lucky. Could have been a lot worse if he threw that special. Nice, EK. Yeah, their profile pictures from Realm of Legends, if I remember correctly. The Pyramid X thing, like that's the apocalypse that Storm Pyramid X's design comes from. I part of me wants to answer your question, Warrior, because it feels harmless, but I also feel like that's maybe not something I should be talking about. The short answer is that there's not a lot ahead of me where I would be doing the same work. Um, yeah. I've climbed pretty quickly in my or in within my team at Kabam. I'm proud of that. There's not like it doesn't mean that there's no opportunities for advancement for me, but if I want to keep designing champions, there's not a ton ahead of me. Yeah, see, like my best Thanos or my best domino counter is Thanos. by a good margin. I probably could have thrown this round, but ugh. I could have played that better. But I think it might have been enough. I'm pretty sure you're trying to go for some humor there, better. A lot of your jokes recently, I've noticed, are like kind of rooted in a little bit of light condescension, which is fine if I like knew who you were and we had that kind of relationship, but I'm just letting you know it's not really landing with me because I don't know you. Yeah, leader did well there. I appreciate that, Bleezy. I'm not worried for the moment. I very much enjoy my job. And there are some things ahead of me. I'm just like, the most obvious thing ahead of me would be like the lead of the team, and I don't want that job because I like my boss. I don't want him to go anywhere. Okay, toodles. That's what you were wondering? Yeah, and that's like there are probably some other teams that I could potentially look at, but yeah, someday. I've seen other people who've done it longer get a little bored with champion design being their main thing, or maybe it's not a boredom thing. Maybe they just decide that other things are more important to them or a better like application of their particular talents, because I do think that happens. But I'm not there yet. Gonna do an incursions live stream? Probably. I do pretty much every month that incursions are relevant. Really not liking the drafts today. I probably should have banned their Elena. Yeah, I also like little 6-star rank up gems. I realized I'd left one alone for a while without thinking about it, and oops, that lined up for me to take up Valkyrie. I didn't actually end up even using her in the invade meta last time, but now I finally have a rank 5 Valkyrie, which I'd kind of been waiting on for too long. Hmm. I know they have Sentinel. I think we can win this race. We'll see. Yeah, Gallon makes sense. Nice, Bleedy. Those are good ones for sure. Sure, Jaeger. What's up? That was slower than I expected from Sentinel. I wonder if they had trouble ramping. Out of all the defensive options they had available, this is the one I was least worried about. No, Jency, we're not. I do have a longer answer for that in a minute. Sentinel stuff can fail, especially on the way up. But yeah, my best guess is that they didn't approach it properly, honestly. Probably went for the heal block rather than just ramping too soon. Something like that. Okay, I'll focus on Jency's question first for a minute. So, for the most part, there is one character I've been given where I was explicitly told slash knew that I had to aim a little north of normal. And that was Deathless Thanos, and that was for obvious reasons, right? He was the final it was the final Deathless. He not only was the last Deathless, but specifically was the reward for getting the other four. It made sense for him to come in a little hot. I think it is worth at this point reminding people that power levels for defenders and attackers are not the same before everybody starts typing Serpent in the chat. If you haven't heard this particular spiel from me before, the quick illustration is that if you want to counter a quote overpowered defender, you can do a reasonable job of it with like 6 counters. You only have to ship 6 characters, maybe probably mostly in the target class, but you could throw some in other ones too, right? As opposed to if you ship an overpowered attacker, you can spend an entire year doing nothing but shipping defenders that hard stop them, and that's less than 10% of the game, and they're still too strong as an attacker, right? Because we're over 300 champions now. So the conclusion from that is that we have to be bluntly more careful with an individual attacker's power level than we do with the defenders. I don't really want to get into the defender cadence question because that is a whole other thing. Maybe we can circle back to that in like half an hour when I've recharged. But with power level, I have been assigned a few major defenders, so I have made difficult defenders, but that is not the same thing as being told to make a character stronger than normal. The only time that's really happened has been Thanos. But I've said really to qualify that both times I've said it, because I will fully admit that Nico kind of has an asterisk on her. Because I was told slash we agreed that it was time to reuse buff immunity. And we knew that buff immunity was going to be good, right? And there are certain effects, there are quite a few effects really, where just attaching them to a champion at all instantly kind of ups the floor on their power level, because you know that if the kit makes sense, if it feels like the character is playable, then the uptime and access to what you want them to do is going to be strong enough that the character's going to be a certain amount of strong. Doesn't necessarily mean they're broken, but certain effects just bring with them, okay, this is going to be powerful. Buff immunity is one of those. Concussion on Luke's, and I'll get back to Jaeger's question in a minute, is kind of another one, right? When you're playing with ability accuracy, you instantly have to be careful. The point being that Nico wasn't intended to be like a deathless Thanos, but we knew because we were making somebody with buff immunity that she was going to be at least quite good. I worked pretty hard in her design to make sure that she wasn't like, that there was extra room there, right? That we could conceivably ship a character with better buff immunity in the future, that she didn't always have it up, that there were things in the chat you wanted to do that were at odds with it, and I think I succeeded, right? I've used Nico enough in War and in Battlegrounds to know that there are fights where it's really tough to keep the buff immunity up, right? Her power gain is not nearly as strong as Claire's, and that's very intentional. Her ability to recover health, I won't say regen because adrenaline is different, is not as, I won't say isn't as good as Claire's, but isn't as like concentrated, right? You have to work at it. And so like I think I did a good job of making her healthy, but we knew she was going to be kind of in the danger zone, so to speak, simply because we were attaching that ability to her kit. So that kind of thing comes up, right? Um, Jean plays a little bit in that space because Uncanny is new and like there haven't really been. It's kind of like Power Gain and Mutant, right? It's not, but it's knocking on the door. And so we had to be kind of careful with that. And again, I think that I did end up shipping a healthy character with the aid of the rest of my team and the balance folks on it. But that I think is one of the things that you're picking up on, Gency, that like because I have worked on some abilities that are pushing the boundaries, because that is how I am trying to help the team move design space forward. I have just that has helped my characters be a little bit more relevant than average, if that makes sense. Almost separate from any kind of objective power level. I think that answers that. Yeah, the last time we had a meta like this, Jade and Gallon, was like that. I think the fastest Battlegrounds fight I've ever done is 12 seconds, and I think that's a two-way tie between Gallon in this kind of meta and long shot against Gore somewhere. Okay, Jaeger asks, what is the order of operations for nodes like Power Snag Masochism versus Masochism over time? Usually concussions won't get shrugged, but War got shrugged against a Kindred on Masochism over time. Interesting. I don't really think I can answer that here because when can I say this? Yeah, I'll give generic a generic response. In our game, there are a lot of different triggers. You've heard me talk about that before, right? Like disintegration versus Yelena thing, or the relationship between neutralize and things unstoppable. There's a lot of different discrete trigger points in our game that we can measure. When things happen on the same frame at the same trigger, the order of operations is one of two things. We can set priorities for those abilities. Like certain abilities are told to trigger early. A good example is like Overseer's special concussion, and because of that, Deathless She-Hulk's, because I copied it. It intentionally triggers very early on that event to try and catch other things within special animations. When things are not given priority, they have a default order of operations. And that is just based on how things load into the code, or how the code loads into the fight. And I'm not going to go into all of the rules for that. That's the border that I'm going to walk up to and then stop at. But sometimes that can lead to things looking inconsistent in the way that you're talking about, which might be the issue here. That's funny, Glops. Hey, people champ. When designing, do I give a random attack value and tune it accordingly, or do I do the math ahead of time? That's actually an interesting question, because I don't think a lot of people realize this. We don't tune attack around a specific value. Instead, the way our game works is that all of the different champion sizes, which we internally refer to as body types, have their own base tunings. There is a default attack and health for a small character of a given rank and rarity. There's a default attack, health, crit rating, armor, block proficiency, etc. for an XL character of a given rank and rarity. What we do is when we build a character, we deviate from that by a percentage. And so, like, when I built Nico, I wanted her to be able to sacrifice her health. And so I gave her more than a normal amount of health for her, quote, body type, right? I also knew that she was going to be modifying her attack with Furies, and so I think she has below average attack relative to that body type. But that's generally how we do it, is we tune from there. with those percentages, and then we see if it's working for us, and then we move off of that. We aren't picking specific numbers. We're aiming for like percentages like that. So another example would be Deathless Thanos. I didn't want crit RNG to be a huge deal with him, so I intentionally tuned his crit damage down and his crit rate up. But again, relative to that body type. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, buff immunity is good. Happy Sundays, Goody. Curious on my thoughts on the Maker. Seems like people came out of the date with some strong, albeit premature judgments. I'm enjoying him trying to work out best rotations for health pools. Seems like there's a ton of potential in just keeping the mind and playing into it as well, rather than always going special 1 and special 2. Yeah, so there's a couple things there. I do think Maker is very good. I think players have gotten a little bit too used to special 1, special 2 is supposed to kill, and if it doesn't, then that means there's something wrong with this character. That's a dangerous headspace to be in, right? And I'm going to point out that specifically for the Maker, he has really strong power advantage abilities. He reduces the opponent's combat power rate, he drains power away from them when he baits their specials out, and then he gains some of what he denies. So he is getting access to 3 bars faster than a normal champion while having to bait fewer specials from the opponent. That is a big advantage. And when you are looking at a character with a power advantage like that, you kind of have to ask yourself, do I want this character to be able to use that power advantage to just nuke things? See somebody like Shocker. Or do you want that to be kind of a controlling thing? And then you're going for a character who's more for like medium, long range fights so that they have utility, right? The Maker is more in that second mold. He was aimed a little bit more at war than Battlegrounds. But I think it's hard for people to really process that kind of subtle power advantage without, seeing a power gain effect on the HUD. And I think they've kind of forgotten that for some characters, sometimes you want to throw 2 special 1s before the special 2. I've seen a lot of those takes on Maker saying, like, special 1 into special 2 doesn't do enough damage because it doesn't kill the opponent and then they reset. But they're throwing the special 2 with, like, 3 suppressions. It maxes at 6 for a reason. And I think the Maker was tuned pretty intentionally around the fact that if you want the special 2 to KO the opponent, you should probably be throwing 2 special 1s first. And if you're doing that, you're still doing good damage. You're still, like, triggering the mine a bunch, but you're building suppressions more, you're controlling your opponent more, you're juicing your own power gain more. So that special 2, that extra bar of power that you're getting, isn't actually taking you as much as it would take another champion. It's not taking as much effort for you to gain and then use that extra bar of power. And that's really important to keep in mind when you're evaluating the Maker. He might need 4 bars of power to kill more often, and it might still fall short sometimes, but that's the trade you're making for his utility and his control, and that 4 bars of power is not costing him the same thing that another character, or the same amount of effort that another character would have to put into getting that 4 bars of power. Thanks, Jinsey. That's not something that was on my radar, Aiden. Taking a look. Blah, 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 blah. What do you mean get around? Are you saying like his ruptures don't glance? Or is it something else? Huh. It certainly looks like that trigger. The way he's set up, that doesn't sound right. Are you sure you don't have some other kind of ability accuracy bonus? Not going to dig into it too much right now. Yeah, no, it's not that, Jaeger. It's two different lines of code responsible for his hit versus block chance. Omega Sentinel and Mantis have high attack and they're small, yes, but theirs is boosted even relative to the small default. Nice, Bleezy, that's cool. You don't know why people are bashing or talking down on Maker? Because the community is terrible at evaluating characters with utility and without big yellow numbers, right? Like, this keeps happening. People said Shocker was too slow. People said that Prowler was too slow and didn't do enough. Like, at some point, you have to stop being surprised by the community making the same mistakes over and over and over again. They're gonna keep doing it. Thanks, Arctic. I don't see a question in there, so I don't have anything that I can't answer. But yeah, in hindsight, I am very glad that we introduced reversal and severe debuffs the way we did that month. Rank 4 Destroyer. I respect it. I actually don't know what cosmics I have in my deck, so I'm not going to take the risk on Penny right now. It's funny that they banned Zola. Or no, I banned Zola. That's right. Okay. Let's grab Luke for that Destroyer. It's funny, Alfie. Yeah, no, I respect the Destroyer pick. That's cool. Nah, I can't follow you there, EK. Maybe you can maybe sell me on Falcon countering Miss instead of something else. But that character does not need to have easy access to debilitate and anti-miss and anti-unstoppable and anti-evade. He does not need all three. Not with how clean that trigger is. You're allowed to be wrong, Alfie. I want Photon, but I'm a little bit concerned about losing to a 6-star Gallon, so I'm grabbing Spiral. I hear you on that, Jaeger. Like, you're definitely allowed to think that his loop is tight, or like I'm not saying he's immune to criticism. I don't think it's fair to say he's bad. Hey, Walrus, happy Sunday. No, I hear you on that, Arctic. I was expecting us to really be comparing our health loss to theirs, but that's nice. I don't really agree with you there, Beguile. I understand where you're coming from, and I've heard many variations of that argument, but I don't think it's true in the long run. Yeah, no, yes, I'm playing Battlegrounds. Nice, Narctic. It's almost like this game is incredibly complicated and deep, and the answers aren't completely objective. No, I did not do the Deadpool X-Force buff. I think Bishop might actually be more of a problem for me than Zola. Although I did have a really good Tiger Bishop run the other day, so maybe not. That's the kind of question that I can't answer, and therefore you shouldn't ask, EK. If I knew anything there, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Yeah, Kat's doing very good things with her rank 4 JT. I respect it. How slow the battleground screen is to respond sometimes. I don't think that's what the word gullible means, dude. Like, I knew what you were doing, but that's not what that word means. Weird end of the draft there. That's a good shot. Shout, Jaeger. I had my hand in all six, Scooty. I won't say that's been the main thing I've been doing in between Nico and my November champion, but it was a significant use of a few weeks. Sometimes this guy. You know what? Just should have done this a minute ago. This is so much overkill. This is the problem I have with Shocker. Like, I probably just need to play way more Battlegrounds with him to have a better feel for things, but I could have KO'd that with, like, 35 charges. Nice, Cyber. That's cool. I think it's fine, clubs. I mean, we're doing Battle Realm Brawl qualifiers, right? I think if people want Kabam to fly them up to compete, it should probably be able to adapt through some meta changes. Do I ever take vacation? I do. Not normally long ones. I took a couple weeks off back in April to go to the UK. That was a lot of fun. I'll take more later. I do appreciate the sentiment, but I'm doing okay. Kabam is pretty good about work-life balance. I'm gonna have to thank Mimic. I'll explain that in a minute. So at one point in Jean's development, she purified all debuffs off the opponent. 3 of any kind of debuff with her heavy. The restriction to neuroshocks and non-dots was because Mimic spoke up and was like, can we not do that yet? Can we please squeeze some more design space out of that? Which was an incredibly fair request from him. I would have made the same one going the other way, most likely. Because, like, she needed to hit neuroshocks, which are not a non-dot, but that's why, you know, the string is uglier, but that's why it says neuroshocks and non-dots. Because hitting non-dots makes a lot of sense. Hitting all debuffs forever, not a great idea. But here, it meant that I could freely use my heavy and not remove the poison from Liquid Courage off the opponent, which was in my favor. Hey, Images, how's it going? Hey, Hinach. I sometimes fall into the emotions trap where if something feels bad, it must mean it's bad, but I realize that one of the good things lately about the recent trend in champ design is it's created a lot of value in a greater number of champions over time. Like a champ who we might think is solid turns out to be very good 8 months later. I think that's true, and I appreciate you saying it. Well, I guess I'm bringing it up. I will limit this, and then if y'all want to go further into it, we can. I'm just going to say it is generally the opinion of the team, or at least the part of the team that is most responsible for meta planning, which includes myself, that the recent Defender cadence is too much. And I'm not, yeah, I'm going to leave that there for a moment. But one thing that the first half of this year and last year did that I think is really good is the phrase I used in a meeting a few weeks ago was that it feels like we have restored the background radiation of defenders, so to speak. And that, like, you know, for a long time, you could kind of just release a new character, and if they countered Korg or Domino or Thing, there was like a handful of threats where it was like, cool, that's enough of a target, ship it, make them fun, that's all that mattered. And we shipped so many attackers for so long that to a pretty large extent, we exhausted a lot of that. Now, Battlegrounds brought it back a bit because you want more than 1 or 2 counters to things. The new war map helped as well because now there's more RPG asks in Alliance War, and therefore that broadens how many counters you need for things. And all of that was on purpose. But it also feels like a lot of these recent 3s rather than 4s and 5s, even if they came out a little faster than we ideally would have intended, which I think they did, I think they have kind of refilled the Defender stock there, and it feels like there are more targets for characters these days without only going after the 4s and the 5s, which is just so much healthier. It allows us to kind of slow things down and not burn through design space and make it easier for players to follow things. And it's just, while I do have sympathy for the number of defenders that y'all have had to process, because I'm going through it too, and it will slow down for a bit, I do think the meta is in a very healthy place right now, and I realize that that has serious potential for me to be patting myself on the back, because I kind of am. but I do think things are in a pretty healthy spot. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about that match. Hey, Brennan, how's it going? Without sharing things I can't share, maybe just speaking in generalities, is there a Rebirth event buff I'm particularly excited about? I think I can say one thing. Like, I don't want to put down the other five. It's a cool pool overall, but it was very interesting looking at Voodoo again with a fresh lens because if you haven't made the connection yet, Kushala was in many ways a modern Voodoo. Like I won't take full credit for the idea. The original kernel of it was actually Kabam Eclipse, who at one point was looking at Kushala, and one of his notes said, "Voodoo with fire?" question mark. And I just kind of ran with that. And obviously that's not all Kushala is, but that's what her special one is. And so much of what she is was influenced by how much time I spent playing Dr. Voodoo as one of my favorite mystics in the entire game. I used to use him on the Acid Wash lane in Alliance Quest, back when Map 7 was new. Like, all kinds of... I used him in variants, in story quests. Voodoo is one of my old favorites. And so using him to inform one of my own champions and then coming back and looking at him in that lens and modernizing him just a bit was very cool. If anybody wants a good example of what we are not doing with this batch of reworks, take a look at what Alfie just wrote. Jesus, bro. I know you were kidding, but woof. Nice, Brennan. Enjoy Superman. I definitely want to go see that soon. Nice, Jay. Yeah, Shocker's awesome. Sorry to hear that about the side project clubs. Knowingly hiring a non-technical manager for technical roles should be a crime. I feel that. I have been very lucky with my managers. They've guided me in different ways in my time at Kabam, but they have both been very knowledgeable about at least part of what I do and have, yeah, been great mentors. So I am sorry you are dealing with that. Yes, I did make Gene Cyber, and no worries. A lot of characters. Defenders are scary. My roster is almost zero way to counter a good bunch of them. Interested to see what the rest of the year has in terms of champs. Yeah, no, I hear that. It's a lot. Yeah, Sabretooth is an interesting one. I will say, like, I'll leak this a little bit. Um, Apologies to Karate Mike if he's watching this back. We did not completely rework Sabretooth's persistent charge mechanism. That is one flat out leak I will give. Because if we had had a lot of time, that probably would have been nice to do, right? But, like, that would have meant kind of starting over and not really building Sabretooth anymore. It just would have been like a character that had furies and bleeds and regens, right? It's it's not the same. So Sabretooth is like still Sabretooth, but it's a weird kit, and I say that with some affection, and I'm pretty happy with where he landed. Viv, I've always liked. Anti-Venom is an interesting one as well, yeah. Anti-Venom's always been a cool design. Old Carolina took to rank 4. Hope the designer knows they created a slam dunk 10 out of 10 champ. Thanks, Hector. Yeah, her designer does. Carolina's designer is a lot of us at Kabam really don't like picking favorites for our children. Carolina's designer, for the most part, tries not to pick favorites, except that Carolina's her favorite. It's not particularly close. I currently use Cull as a Zola counter. That's a good shout, yeah. Cull's cool. That's funny, Pablo. Welcome. Pumped for all 6, but think Night Thrash has the most potential given the state of the 7-star skill class. Not surprised to read that. Is there any consideration when designing defenders to make targets for undervalued champions? Yes. Whenever we see a good way to do it, we absolutely do, right? It's just tough sometimes. Because sometimes the undervalued characters are using things that very well valued characters are also using, right? Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I won't say more on that right now. I'll start another look. Thanks, Scott. Scooty, I appreciate that. Yes, I was in the chat where that tier list came out, Nick. It's an interesting tier list because we were talking about that. Like I don't rank my children, but Honeydew's tier list for her champions was kind of an emotional one. It was less about like quality or like I think I did this perfectly, and more about like the emotional response thinking back to how it went. And I definitely feel that. Um, the easiest example for me that I have given before, and so I don't think it's really saying anything here, is Kate. Because I am still very proud of Kate. I really think I did a good job there. However, when somebody tells me that they really like Kate, I don't go, awesome, I'd love to hear that. My gut reaction is immediately, okay, do you like Kate for a good reason or a bad reason? Like, do you appreciate the work I did with an interesting kit and, like, you know, corner play and space control in a sense that the skill class hadn't really done before, etc., etc., etc.? Or are you happy that her cold snap deals too much damage? Because those are two different things. Those are two very, very different things. And it's always hard to know where somebody's going with it if I don't know them well already. Hey, Snoops, how's it going? Yeah, Carolina's great. I don't rank your children. Yes, you do. They're all ranked 4. Patriot isn't yet. I'm working on it. Nor is Luke. But yeah, I'm working on it. If I use Kate and Necro every path, is that a bad reason? Not necessarily. I used her a lot too. Exactly, gloves. Oh. Both reasons. I can't really fault you for that, EK. Yeah, happy to see you, Snoops. Thanks, Walrus. Yeah, I like Kate's little arrow stab light. I didn't request that for sidestepping, but the more I played with her, I was like, yes. Because we did explicitly say we wanted her to stab with some arrows, right? That was on purpose. The fact that that arrow stab also made her light have good reach and be quick was kind of a happy accident. Yeah, that's basically the idea in Arctic. I've said before when it comes to Patriot that I think there are some people who are going to be angry because it's not more, and I'm just not going to care. Oops. Oops. I definitely could have played that differently. Not particularly happy with it. Purgatory also wasn't rebalanced. Let's be clear, y'all. Pablo's talking about a program that had nothing to do with the way Purgatory got buffed. Oh, I see. About that. I get it. I don't know. I still don't really agree that Purgatory was way more than a nudge. That's funny, Arctic. Your answer be all of the above. Yeah, it can be, Scooty. By the way, Scooty, I think you're behind a bit on the stream, and that's okay. Um, but if you want to do what Pablo did and speed it up a little bit as you're watching, you might catch up to us. Yeah, Iron Fist is an interesting one. Oh, don't start that, Alfie. Don't start that. One of my least favorite things in this community is people going, no, this character needs a buff before that one. Like, it's just, it's not productive. Don't do it. That stuff isn't objective. When you say that, you're just being like, no, excuse me, my preferences, they matter more than yours. Thank you, please sit back down. It's like, that's... There are a lot of characters that need to be reworked, and there are a whole lot of reasons attached to them. If you're not controlling power or regen, you mean like against a character with a bunch of power gain from their sig or regen from the node? Interesting, Arctic. I don't even know what I want to do with this. That was not a great point in the draft for me. Well, that's what I mean on that I wasn't playing the fight as well as I could have, but Rintra absolutely has a bunch of power gain. You be for real. Nice, Nick. I'm still missing Invisible Woman. Hmm. Yeah, that's right. I may grab her from that. I haven't decided yet. Alright, let me see if I can do this a little cleaner this time. There we go. Yeah, and I've got Ultron and Sinister, both high sig. And then I own Nightcrawler, and I don't think I have either Carol or Sue. So I have some choices. Maybe I did? Was she guaranteed? I literally don't remember. I might own her. I thought she was just crystals, and I can't remember. If she's guaranteed, I have one copy of her. I probably have one copy, and that's why. Because I do value her sig quite a bit. Okay, then I'm sure I have her. The only guaranteed champs I've missed were the hench pools because I wasn't paying attention. That was awfully rude for that to only be 3 months. Alfie's just here to rage bait. Don't take him seriously. This Prowler is not playing along. Forgot about the power lock. Oh, that sucked. I'm playing this poorly, but I also feel like I kind of just need to get to round 3, so we'll see how they do. Pass, Alfie. You're not doing a good job of earning it. That's awesome, Clubs. Hey, Dan. I just got a new phone. I think that may have been the source of my problems with Battlegrounds. Well, I'm glad that you feel like you have fewer problems now. I'm sorry it was down to the phone. That stinks. That is cool, Dusk. Congrats. Yeah, they're not happy with their round 3. That's fine. Oh, they think they've trapped me. That's also fine. Okay, we can mute you. If they got me, they got me. That's fine. I played terribly in that Shother fight. Oh, wow. That power sting really came out of nowhere. Yeah, I should have waited it out. Didn't play that well. No, I wish I took that heavy on purpose. They sent all of those emotes and they couldn't take Tiger down that fast? Oh my god, they paused it. That's so funny. Oh. Haha, gotcha, gotcha. Uh-oh. Instant karma. What emote was I about to send? I was about to do the Thanos. I swear. The Ultron thing one is good. Absolutely, Jaeger. I do like the Quicksilver one. I don't think I ever see myself using it because it's kind of hard to do so without being toxic, but it's a good emote. Nah, grab Luke now. Uh, it depends on the competition, Daniel. If you are planning on doing the run at some point, then like probably he's one of the best rank fours out there. Um, that also depends on how many other options you have for the Awakening Gem. I think I lean towards yes, because Luke is very good, but he doesn't need the Awakening Gem, and so if you have somebody else who does, I might go with them. Another draft I'm not in love with. Agreed, Mookie on both counts. That's a tough one. They likely win this first round, so maybe I should have held on to leader. We'll see. That was enough. Ooh! Okay. Our odds are much better winning that. Agreed, Jaeger. We did tune that SIG to be impactful. Hey, Akbar, how's it going? Okay, that I think I can do. Thanks, Nick. Could have maybe been faster, but I really didn't want to test the potency of the armor up there and find out that it was enough to stop Shocker from KOing. Okay. How screwed was I in round 3? Medium. I didn't really have any defenders left, which was the problem. They probably just slow me down enough with any of those 3. Jean would have been the smart play, even at rank 3. Thanks, Oops. How much of a deck shift? Probably a fair amount. It's been a long time since we had electric defense, but it was a pretty dramatic shift last time. On that note, I should probably check and see if there's any rank ups I want to do with that in mind. Hmm. Oop. I wonder how many Titans I'm going to have when that comes around. Okay, it doesn't look like we're... Ooh! When did that happen? Probably a while ago. Okay, I'm not upset about that. Do I have anyone that would go to? I feel like probably... Ooh, maybe Moondragon. I know a lot of people would lose their minds if I did that. Yeah, Lumitrix or Moondragon, most likely. I've got Patriot, I've got Elena. Okoye is a possibility. We have a few in my battle group now. I'm not sure I would love using a gem on her. Yes, it's not a tech, therefore it's a win. I am fully on board with that. I did, Nick. I've intentionally left that message unread, not on read, so I don't forget about it. I haven't had time to go through it, but I plan to. I would not say that, Andrew, because I haven't done the math and I have no clue. Yeah, Lumentrix is great. Close. Not that. You know what? I probably have enough. Yeah. Let's just open a couple of these. Whoa, I didn't mean to hit the fives. Why is... Forgot it's not in order. Whatever. I don't need those. I'll have more by the time it switches. That's fine. We're opening a 7-star. Future DLL can worry about that later. Okay, Ziggs on Shuri. More perfect block. Phoenix is a good shout. Gallon can manage without the dupe. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Scream would be another good one to send up. Gladiator, I think you'd want at least a decent Sig. Scream is probably the priority there. I am low on cosmic resources at the moment. Kind of unfortunate, but also makes sense given Gladiator. Don't know that any of those need to be a priority. Spider-Woman, maybe? Like, not for Battlegrounds. She's good in general. Zola I should probably prioritize, but also people will be running more Cosmics. I don't know. I'll keep thinking about it. Yeah, that makes sense, Pablo. Because you're just looking at the one armor up more than anything else. All right, thank you so much, everybody. This is a good stream, and I will catch y'all soon. Maybe I'll get a war video out for tomorrow. I would like to do them this season. Warning, there's some messy stuff. I am rusty. We'll see. Anyway, take care, everybody.